Hello, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to be with us. We're here and ready to share with you a little lacrosse talk here on Candid Frank Live, of course, is NLL Lacrosse Talk. You can watch us on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the iOS and Android stores. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV Sticks, Roku Sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. And our guest host, of course, is Gary Groob, and our special guest is Glenn Clark, coach and GM of the Albany Firewolves. Glenn, thank you for being on the program.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Like everyone else, has to explain to us what brought you to lacrosse. We really need to know that.
Mine was a hockey journey. I was a hockey player and a soccer player, and one of my hockey teammates when I was young asked if I wanted to play lacrosse with him. And the one summer I did, I played both, and then my mom told me I had to choose because it was too busy. So I chose lacrosse the next year. So that was, it was through a buddy of mine that I played hockey with, introduced me to the game.
What was it about lacrosse that made you make that decision?
Just all the elements that we all liked, the speed, the skill, it just the intensity, the pace of it was more in line with, I played hockey, I played lacrosse, I played football, I played rugby. It was sort of that sort of fast-paced physical contest, which sort of was more in line with what I enjoyed doing.
Yeah, so it checked more boxes than any of the other sports.
Yeah. I mean, I love golf, I love badminton, I love things like that. But yeah, it was.
You can't hit a guy with a golf club.
No, but there's other frustrations.
Not without charges.
Not say you don't want to. I'm just saying you can't.
I know.
Well,
or a badminton
Gary,
racket for that matter.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start with junior. You did Scarborough and Whitby for your 5 years. Let's talk about the programs. We all are pretty savvy with the Whitby program. Let's talk about Scarborough and your initial bid into junior.
Well, I was the furthest from a prospect. So back then I wasn't even invited to a training camp. So I got to the Scarborough team. A buddy of my older brother's was at our place for a barbecue, and he was leaving, and he said he was going for a tryout. And I asked him where he was going. He said Scarborough. I said, "Oh, well, you think I could come?" And so I literally just jumped in with them, went to the tryout, wasn't on their list. They let me try out, and I made the team from there. So I played 4 years of junior B. I didn't play my fifth year. I didn't play my junior A year until my 5th year of junior. So really? I was on a slow and steady path.
And in that 5th year, when you went over to Whitby, what was the eureka thing that got you to junior A then?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's like a lot of guys where we just all develop it, and not guys, I mean athletes. We all develop it at different times, and I was a bit of a late bloomer because that 1 year my only year of junior A, I was junior A all-star. I got called up. I won a Man Cup, and I got drafted pro to the original NLL league. So, from going for 4 years, not being able to make junior A, to the 1 year I played, I was an all-star. I won a Man Cup. I was a call-up, and I got drafted pro. So just, like a lot of athletes, when we all mature and bloom and figure it out at different times. So I was a little later than most.
That leads to an interesting question, though, because one of the things I ask a lot is, do we pigeonhole kids too soon into a position? And we lose them because if they're, a late bloomer offensively, we stick them defensively and they get bored or they don't want to do it and they stop. Whereas you're a good case example that by, letting you develop further on, look at the career you had.
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think we're very quick to, junior, for example, the junior draft, those are the ones that are going to be the players, ones that are taken in the first round, the second round. And well, my oldest son, for example, I cut him 3 years in a row from junior A. He didn't play junior A till his fourth year because he wasn't ready.
Right.
And, he was sort of on a similar path to me. He played his fourth year, and then, now he's playing senior A at West in Nanaimo and got drafted to the NLL. But he was a late bloomer as well. So I do. I mean, I think it's dangerous to get too excited too early about athletes, and it's also you do a disservice to programs and athletes when you just think at 16 years old, well, this is it. This is the canvas. This is all there is. And you're going to have a lot of change between those, whatever the time frame is, 10 to 13, 13 to 16, 16 to 20, and even 20 to 30. I mean, I got cut my first time trying in the NLL as well. And then went on to have some success after that. So yeah, it's really, it's a journey, and it is, if you're persistent enough and you get some breaks and have the opportunity to showcase yourself, it can happen at any time, really.
How do you insulate that situation, either from the player's perspective or the organization's perspective? If you understand my question, is there a way to sort of guard against it, and or have a key idea of a player's development and seeing a tiny spark, because that's all you see at first or for a while?
Yeah, I mean, from an athlete's perspective, mine was just a love of sports. So I when I got cut, I didn't get discouraged because it was just what I wanted to continue doing. So I know a lot of athletes when they get cut, when they don't have, when they have some adversity, frustration, love of the game might lose, or might wane for them. And for me, it didn't. It was just kind of, I didn't really know any better. I thought, okay, I got cut, I'll try next year. Okay, I got cut again, I'll try next year. I mean, I did it 4 years in a row in junior.
Hmm.
So I just was of the mindset that I wanted to continue to play. So I would keep pushing myself. And I think, from a parental or a coach standpoint, one of the things that, it's more about the journey. And I know this kind of gets thrown around a little bit, and people talk about that and value the journey and that, but that is it. I mean, if you don't love what you're doing, and if you don't really want to continue to do it, just because you're not doing it at the highest level, that shouldn't be the determining factor. So my son was another example. He was on the same thing. Like, he didn't. I had to cut him. I had to drive home with him after I cut him from junior, and he was, kind of businesslike about it. He was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll play junior B. I'll try it next year. I'll see if I can get called up." So I don't know. It's just I think you really have to focus on why you're doing it, and what are your whys, what are your what's, and really just continue to pursue what you love doing.
Yeah, so it's a test of your desire, and I guess
I think so.
from a coach's perspective, how much do you want this, I guess, is the question you ask the athlete.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen it even at the pro level where we have guys now that, we're mid-range junior A players, and they get to the pro level, and now they've established themselves as pros much further along than guys that were much further along than them at 20 and 21 years old in junior. So I guess you just don't know, and the roll of the dice and the commitment and the journey is worth it to me.
And the situation. The
Yeah.
situation is very, very important too. So
Hmm.
really what you're talking about is a player has to find a gear that they need, boys and girls, not just boys and not just men, but also younger players. They've got to find the gear that they can get on and be successful. Searching for that is, I think, one of the biggest things that coaches have to offer, is finding the positives within a player's mind as far as what they can do. Is that one of the reasons why you like coaching?
Yeah, and it's a very different endeavor for me. So, I mean, I coached my two older guys from 4 years old to midget and the older one into junior. And I was a high school teacher and a coach, and I've done it at the pro level, the national level. So I've sort of run the gamut of coaching from 4-year-olds to 40-year-olds and, you know, the most simplistic house league systems to the most advanced. And so it's a different approach for me. I mean, obviously the pro level, the international level, the junior level is a little more results based. So the coaching, the teaching, the instruction is all in there. But with the younger ones, you know, I've always been a firm believer about it's just developmental. It's just give them tools to be successful. I think a lot of times, and I've seen it where we care a lot about the wins and losses at the younger age, and it's more the adults caring about it than the kids. And I mean, my philosophy with the younger ones is give them ammunition, teach them, instruct them, let them enjoy it, because the reality is, I mean, if that is the end goal of, you know, getting to that highest level, moving on, whatever that is in the sport, very few get it to that level anyway. But they can all enjoy it, and they can all enjoy the journey. And, you know, that's one of the things I said to my kids as well, because my older son was better athlete than my younger son. And my message to both of them was, we all end up in men's league anyway. So you just need to be good enough to be a men's league player eventually. So, you know, whether I played in the NHL or played in the NLL, I mean, I'll be playing men's league at some point. So, that was sort of my messaging to them, is enjoy it, get as good as you can get at it, take what you can from it, enjoy it, and see what the journey looks like for you.
Now, when you were playing MSL and you're with your 5 years with Brooklyn, by the way, 5 defensive awards for Player of the Year. This was still in the old style, right? We're still running lines at that time, right? As opposed to now. Do you think that's let's say a better look? Is it a better play than throwing 5 offensive guys and 5 defensive guys in and out?
I don't know, and I don't know the best way to answer this. So I was there for that transition. So I did a little bit of both. I mean, I can remember, you know, obviously playing in the lines, and in fact, my first year in the NLL, we did that. We played in lines and then shifted to the offense defense system. And I'm of two minds, and I kind of like the way it is now, with the minor box rules. I really do believe the younger players should do both. You know, you should play in the offense, play in the defense, learn the game, because I think whether you're going to be an offensive player or a defensive player, there's value in learning the other side of the ball. You're a more effective offensive player if you understand what defenses are doing, and vice versa. So I do think from a teaching standpoint and instructional and growth of the athlete and all those types of things, that it is valuable to learn both. But then I get to the actual game, and I think the offense defense, the speed, the precision, the precise nature of that, I think is a better product, is a more entertaining game. So I know that argument's been around where a lot of people debate whether they like the two-way style of the game, and we still have some of the players that will do that, but I think the way the game is played now is more entertaining.
Right.
All about tempo, right?
Yeah, it's so fast, it's so precise. It's you know, I can remember playing in the old system. You play defense, you get the ball. Sometimes guys would literally just walk it up the floor, right, and then get into your offensive set. So I just think that the speed, the tempo, the entertainment value is better in that offense defense system.
Keeps the fans on the edge of their seat.
Yeah, no, and it is. It's the entertaining pace of play and everything, and I think from a spectator sport,
Sure.
It's a better version.
Mm-hmm. But again, case in point, you had 181 points in MSL, so maybe the old
Did I
system,
really?
55 goals, 126 assists.
Oh, wow, good for
So
me.
yeah, so maybe that does work though, because your offensive numbers were great and still being named defensive players of the year after year. So they got a chance to showcase both ends of your game. So yeah,
Yeah,
for
and I do remember that.
I understand what you're saying though. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had no idea really what my MSL numbers were because I think I played almost 10 years in Brooklyn. I played a long time, a senior. I played almost 10 years in Brooklyn. I went to Coquitlam for 3 years, and then I think I finished in Barrie for 3 years. So I probably played 15, 16 years of MSL lacrosse. Um, and, half of it, maybe, no, I don't even know if half, like maybe, a third of it was the OD system versus the two-way system. So yeah,
Right.
I played at that level in both models, and I know obviously more points when I was playing two-way versus just the OD.
Right. One more question with MSL, then we'll move on. But with MSL opening up this week, do you think that they're stuck in a traditionalist mentality, or do you think they're moving with the times, kind of like NLL?
In what way? In just
Just
the
generally, we're still in 3 periods. We're still with Woody's as the goal
oh
setter.
yeah,
Just the
yeah,
whole thing in general, and also TV. The WLA has gone way ahead, getting all our games out, as
yeah.
opposed to a few games here and there from
Mhm.
MSL to try and get butts in the seats, because if we don't know it, nobody's coming.
Yeah, no, and I do like point, case in point, I'll be watching my son's game tonight. Nanaimo's playing New Westminster, and I'll be able to
Right.
watch the game, and watch him play. So that is great to be showing and growing the product. I do think it is time to align with the NLL. I mean, there is a lot of traditionalists that push back on that, but I mean, it's like the NHL 40, 50 years ago. It's like all major pro leagues. I, I, I find it funny that we have like different size nets, different size rules, different size, limitations, goaltending equipment. You've got smaller nets and bigger goalies in junior and in MSL than you have in pro. And if the goal is those are your leagues that are going to develop the best players, why not have them in alignment and not only, have goaltender sticks, all those things, rules in alignment. So yes, I do think it is time to move towards that. And I know they have done, and they are doing small things as they go along, but um, you, it would, I mean, if you use the hockey equivalent, it would be, you know, playing 4 quarters in junior hockey and having, smaller nets and bigger goalies in junior hockey, and then making them go to the NHL and go, oh, wow, there's a bit of an adjustment period.
Yeah.
Well, of course there is, right? You're supposed to be developing these guys. So, yeah, no, it is. It would be nice, and I know there's lots of dialogue between the two leagues and the organizations, and but yeah, it would be a better seamless transition if that was the case.
Right. So you get drafted by the Ontario Raiders and
Mhm.
get onto the team, and then go to the move to Toronto. You seem to be in a lot of these moves.
Yeah, I
New
know.
England to Albany. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get to that in a bit. But and then all of a sudden we're into the dynasty years. A couple of questions about that. One is playing for Les Bartley.
Mhm.
Talk about that and what you picked up as a player and what you've used as a coach.
I think he was really ahead of the times in terms of level of preparation, use of video, even the game planning that we used, the practicing that we used was very specific, very opponent specific. There was a lot of coaching, and that transition, like a lot of it was, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, show up and yell. That was coaching, right? Like, we'll show up the game and we'll yell at guys and you be better, you work harder, and you do this. Whereas this was sort of precise and planned, and you knew what was happening, a lot of use of video. Every practice we'd be watching video and either breaking down our games or the next opponent. So, and he was a great communicator. So, I think people have said this before, the sort of the coaching tree from Les Bartley of the guys who've played for him, guys who've coached under him. I mean, 80% of the NLL guys now have been either coached or coached with Les in the NLL. So his imprint on the game is well deserved, and the trophy being named after him is very appropriate. So he was, I had a lot of good coaches. I was lucky growing up, and you take a lot from the different ones, good and bad. But Les was certainly a very positive influence on me and others. I mean, I think he revolutionized the game of lacrosse, and I don't think that's too bold of a statement.
Right. Now, 5 championships. It's a little daunting for me. Is there a favorite in those 5?
You know what? Maybe the first one, because it snuck up on us a little bit. We were in Ontario, and I actually had a really tough start to that, because I think it was the third game with the Ontario Raiders. I broke my leg really badly. It was one of those ones where I had to have reconstructive ankle surgery, and it was one of those ones where they're like, you might not play again. And so I was off for about 8 months, and then came back when we had moved to Toronto and didn't start the season playing with the team, and sort of got in, midway through. But it kind of snuck up on us, because in Ontario, we 6-6 team, didn't make, I think it was 6-6 back then, didn't make the playoffs. And then we got to Toronto, sold out buildings, and won some close games, and it was, I distinctly remember about 3/4 of the way through the season, Derek Keenan, who was playing with us and then transitioned to be an assistant coach. I remember this, and I remember Derek saying because we used to drive, we were sort of in the same area geographically, we drive to practice. He's like, I think we're going to win this whole thing. And I remember looking at him going like, how are you in that mindset right now with that level of confidence? And I just kind of took it all in, and then we just kept rolling. And I'm like, yeah, he saw something at that point that led him think that we were going to be that group. And then, it just, the momentum, the confidence, I mean, really ran with us for about 6-7 years.
Right. Yeah, because that's quite a group of guys too. So a lot of being able to learn from others in that group. Was it was a close knit group? Obviously, was there a lot of sharing secrets, so to speak, and everybody helping each other's game?
Oh yeah, I mean, we were all so focused on winning. I mean, we were focused on winning. We were focused on excellence, and there was a lot of talented teams. I mean, we beat Rochester in 3 of those championships, I think. And when you looked at rosters on paper, which, people always do, I mean, they certainly were, in some ways maybe more talented than we were. The thing about that group was, one was the level of preparation that, our coaches put us through. But we had a group of players that just wore teams down. Like, we were very, very consistent in our execution, and we didn't try and win the game in the first 10 minutes. We didn't try and win it in the first half. We didn't try and win it in the third quarter. We just kept executing. And as simple as that sounds, it wears teams down mentally. And I think that was our sort of our best skill, is we had a core that traveled through all those championships, and then 5 or 6 guys would be added here and there, but a lot of like-minded athletes. And I think that was our greatest skill, was we could do it better longer, and we were consistent.
And having a commitment to the game plan.
Yeah.
Establishing that.
Yeah, and Les did a good job of understanding which guys were that, right? I mean, we had a core for a reason. We had a lot of guys that were on all of those teams, and then when changes needed to be made, he looked for those types of athletes to come in and continue that. So I think a lot of it was talent and character identity as well. And when he had it, he kept it.
Right. Now, you brought up the point of playing in front of packed houses, and I remember the Maple Leaf Gardens days, and the place was bananas. And then, of course, our Canada Centre, and it traveled along with it in 18,000, 19,000. One of the things that was big was that every game was on TV too, so it was out there to be seen. And anybody who's listening to me, see me on my soapbox forever, saying that the game has to get to the mainstream people so that they can come and know when the games are, know who's playing, and see the game itself and fall in love like all we have. Now that it's back with TSN and ESPN, do you see that coming back again?
I do, and I'm with you. I mean, I said it all along that one of the reasons we were so successful with our crowds during my era in Toronto was because in some seasons we had every game on TV. I mean, I think at one point it was TSN, it was The Score, it was Sportsnet. They all kind of shared broadcasting rights and opportunities. And I think the thing that TV does is it legitimizes your sport. So you will be sitting at a bar or a restaurant and you'll see, lacrosse on TV, and it automatically makes people think that it's mainstream. It's legitimized sport. So getting back on TV, the TSN, I mean, I'm living down in Albany now, so a lot of the games are on ESPN, and it's a must. I mean, if we're going to engage new engage new fans and get the buildings that we see in Buffalo and Colorado and Calgary and places like that, if we're going to have that consistently across the board, we need to be on linear TV. We need to be on mainstream TV. And I couldn't agree more. I said that forever, that when Toronto's crowd started to drop, it was directly proportionate to the amount of time they were on TV.
Right.
And you saw you could see a line, right? TV goes down, crowd went down, and it followed that path, and it was related to the exposure and the perception of being big time sports.
Yeah.
Well, it's advertising. It's advertising.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't know something's happening, what would make you go?
Yeah. No,
and the
Field
TV
that question a lot. Do we still have a team? Yes, we do.
Oh, I know, because I mean, in our day, I mean, it was radio, it was TV, it was newspapers back then. I mean, people don't look at newspapers as much, but we were doing breakfast television a couple times. We were in people's faces, and that sort of legitimized the sport in Toronto.
Right.
The championships didn't hurt either.
Well, that was I mean, that solidified it, right? You got people there, and then they saw that. I remember people's first games being, the 2000 championship, and then walking in going, I can't even believe what I just saw. Like, I mean, they didn't know anything about the game, and they were like, this is the greatest sporting spectacle that they've ever seen, and became lifelong fans.
Yeah, my point is that to get on the mainstream, it takes a few things, not anything in specifics, but for the most part, when a championship rolls around to town, that's when mainstream media and local communities, invites them in, because every community loves a winner. Not to suggest that you have to win to have a good fan base, but if you want new fans, that's pretty much what has to happen. That's where you get a lot of your new fans. People become aware of this great team, I should check it out type thing. It helps.
Oh yeah, and we saw that phenomenon in Saskatchewan not too long ago, right? Where they moved into market with a championship team, and it does certainly help the pitch and the product and the longevity.
Which you also gave me a trivia question, right? Because you were the last championship at Maple Leaf Gardens, and the first one at Air Canada Centre, for that matter.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, which is why it's important that the game always be available to people to see. And the other thing that you kind of mentioned there, which I think is really important, and that is the plan that the NLL has when they bring in expansion teams, and they don't make them flounder the first couple of years. I think that's a very intelligent and good move, because you're really fighting for entertainment dollars wherever you are. It doesn't matter the size of the community.
And those have been very purposeful changes, and I've sort of seen that transition and lived it over the last bunch of years. I mean, when I was playing, expansion teams would come in and they would just get crushed, and they would, they'd be the doormats of the league. And the league has been very conscious about what you just mentioned, is these teams need to come in and be successful, and they've changed the rules. I mean, they've changed the rules in terms of what we can protect. What that configuration looks like of players being protected, extra picks in the entry draft, which in our league are huge. So, you've seen the byproduct. I mean, the Saskatchewan, or not, the San Diego's, the Phillies,
Georgia.
Vegas, Panther City, all these. Yeah, Rochester. They've come in, and in some ways, it's a if you do it right, in 2 or 3 years, you're going to be one of the better teams in the league, because you're going to get these first overall picks, these high draft picks. You're going to get extra picks at the end of the first round, and in 2, 3, 4 years, I mean, you've got quite a base that it's really hard for existing teams to match,
Right.
because you're not going to get, you're not going to get all the top 3 picks. You're not going to get all the top 5 picks. So eventually those expansion teams, they're in a position to exceed the existing teams. So you're going to get this rotation of, teams that can stay at the top and do it. So yeah, the expansion teams have had a lot of success in the last few years.
That should be the secondary goal. Is you one of the things that one has to be concerned about. It's all great that, and I really do feel it's great that the expansion teams get so much help, but they also have to make sure that none of the existing teams fall too far behind, because that's the same problem, a mirror image of the problem, but it's the same problem.
Yeah, because they'll bleed fans as well, right? So no, you do, and then. I think the idea is we advantage the expansion teams early, and then there's a leveling off, and then you sort of at this even playing field as you're managing your roster with free agency and drafts and stuff like that. But our league is it's a little bit like the NBA, where those first 2, 3 picks in each draft are franchise changers, and you have a couple of years of that, and you're eventually got some dominant players in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Now, you had 3 All-Star appearances, which leads me to my next question again with the TV thing. Do you think it's time to reinstate the All-Star game? We talked to Brett Fruit about it, and he seems to have it in his mind, just not at the forefront. I think personally it'd be a great thing on ESPN or TSN to have that, especially a skills competition, to show the greatest players in the world and what they can do.
Yeah, I do, and I mean they were. I think what was the order? I think I played in Colorado, Calgary, and then Toronto. And I don't know if they didn't have any before that, and I don't really know if they had many after that. I don't know how many NLL All-Star games they've had.
I think 2010 was the last one, or 11.
Oh, and they continued on after that.
Something like that.
So I played in those 3. I think it was 4, 5, and 6, maybe. But every game was either a sellout or close to a sellout. And I remember the one that we had in Colorado was nationally broadcast in the U.S. I think it was on NBC or something like that. And they were all on, TSN or Sportsnet, whoever was covering it in Canada at the time. But, I mean, I played in the one in Toronto. It was sold out. Calgary was sold out. Colorado was sold out. So I think it's, as you mentioned, it's a great way to showcase the product. And NLL All-Star games are the best All-Star games, because it is a game. Like, it's not, I almost got kicked out of the All-Star game. I don't know if you know that story. I took 2 5-minute majors in an All-Star game. So it's like the NLL All-Star game is a game. Like, guys are playing, and you can't play lacrosse any other way. So, you don't get this sort of, I love hockey. I mean, I played hockey my whole life. I still play hockey. I can't watch the NHL All-Star game. It's just because it's not hockey.
Right.
And same with the NBA. They're not an accurate depiction of their sport. Either is football, but baseball, you can have it, and our sport, you can have it. So our All-Star games are fantastic.
Yeah, the problem I think might be, Glenn, I'm not sure. I'm just spitballing here, where it's careful what you wish for. Do you really want to have a game that's as good as a regular game with players who are attached to teams and owners that are concerned about the players being able to continue for them and their games? Do you know what I mean? Like
injuries and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, a better way to say it is the nature of the game. Like, even if you watch an NLL practice or a major series of practice or a high-end practice, it's just the way you play the game. Like,
you can't play a different way.
Yeah, like you might not be trying to, obviously you're not trying to hurt somebody, but there won't be as many like off-ball slashes and sort of cross checks as guys are going through the middle. But when I'm engaged one-on-one with a player, I mean, it is cross-check slot. Like that's the way the game is played. So
Right.
I mean, I think the risk of injury is always there. I mean, it's certainly a lot less in all-star games. And we used to sort of, it'd always be stacked on a weekend. You'd sort of, have a Friday night game in Toronto, and then the Saturday would be the All-Star game in Toronto or something along those lines. So it worked well. And I just think it showcases well in terms of an event.
Right.
think
You can't really worry about injuries, right? Because you suffered it with your face-off guy with Joey Nardella getting hurt in a tryout for U.S. Box Club. So it's going to happen. Like these things happen. So whether it's in an all-star game or whether it's a practice, something, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So, I think it's still a great idea for the fans.
Well, what if they use the same kind of theme that you talk about, how hockey isn't really a hockey game? They make it more of an event based. Do you think that lacrosse could kind of, to pacify the reasons why they don't have an all-star game, add, is there enough that they could create event-wise that seems to have raised the popularity of even, football? It's not about the game, it's about the individual players and their abilities. And I know lacrosse players are as able as anybody athletically.
Yeah, I think it could. I mean, I think you could even go a step further and have it as a standalone showcase in markets you're thinking about. You could have it at a separate venue, and I mean, I'll pick a place like Winnipeg, for example, that has an NHL size arena. You could get turf in there, make it a weekend. You have the ability to sell it for a year, get fans involved, and have autograph sessions, skill sessions, game, all that stuff, and make it a big event. Yeah, I mean that would be something that you could use to try and springboard and introduce even into new markets.
Just to assuage those concerns by some that, they want to protect their players. I'm sure as much as injuries happen, you don't want them to happen. And the effect it has on teams and some teams, minds, it's devastating. It can be very devastating losing because you're going to lose a great player if you lose them in the All-Star game. It doesn't matter which one. It doesn't matter which one.
Yeah. I mean, when you're looking at, everything's about pros and cons, right? If you're looking at what you want to accomplish from a league standpoint, I think, everybody would be like, if it's something that's going to help grow this product, grow this game, make it better for all of us.
Yeah.
You gotta weigh that against the potential of a possible injury.
You almost have to get on the same page as bringing in expansion teams and making them competitive right away. In other words, there has to be sacrifice, by everyone to make everything, make the league that much better. I think ultimately is where we're at here.
Yeah. And I would say I would say all ownership, management, everybody they know that, they understand that, they agree with that.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Good to know.
All right, let's get on to your coaching. You were offered a position with the Toronto Rock in 2006, and you retired to take it. Things are a little different now than they were then. That would turn into the transition period of the Toronto Rock. More of a difficult thing, but I'm sure you grew a lot as a coach over those couple of years.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, in hindsight, it's not the model to follow. But like most things in life, you do learn from those hard times too. So it wasn't. It was sort of a transitionary period for the team. I know it was a little bit similar to what we're going through in Albany, where it was a bit of a retooling and getting draft picks and. And we did do that. I mean, we weren't around long enough to see the benefits of that, but a lot of those deals we made turned into a lot of the foundation that they had to go on and win that 2011 thing with Steph LeBlanc and Billings, and we had 3 first-rounders in that draft that we had traded to get. So it was the right model at the time, but when you're the one having to live with it, it's not easy. So. But there was lots, it was a valuable part of my learning and growth. And another really valuable part of that was when I coached in CLAX, which is now the ALL, the league Paul St. John started. That was great. That was great for me. And I remember it was myself, Dan Latisseur, and a guy named Kevin Van Sickle. And I said, specifically to Dan. I said, this is an opportunity. Like, we need to treat this. This is how we get better at coaching. Like, this is an opportunity to become better coaches, and we've got to sort of be real cerebral about decision making and how are we going to get better at our craft. And that was a real valuable experience as well.
Mm-hmm. And the NLL's turned into being a great feeder league for the NLL and using the same rules, kind of what we talked about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
really being that training thing to teach these guys how to be professionals. So once they get up to the game, just stay there, which is
that,
invaluable.
and also keeping them ready. So there was really, during an NLL season, I mean, if you had somebody that got hurt, you were calling some guy that might have been sitting around for 4 months and said, hey, you want to come jump into an NLL game? And that doesn't usually work out too well. So now you've got guys that are in game shape, and we've used several of them over the years. And not only, and there's that affiliation agreement as well, where your practice players can go and play in the league, and you can have that sort of transition in between. So yeah, what Paul's created and the ALL is invaluable to the NLL, and I hope that relationship just keeps growing, and it's almost like sort of this American League to the NHL type of thing, where you've got these affiliation agreements, and possibly even, having more players, and that's one of the things I think would be valuable is, drafting players and having some rights retention so you can develop them maybe in that league, as opposed to the way it works now is if we draft them and they don't make our team, they're done. So you've got not done with us. So you've got, your 3, 4, 5, 6 round draft picks. If they don't make your team, we talked about this earlier, people more team time to develop, more time in.
There it is.
And usually the 3, 4, 5, 6 round draft picks, the ones that become good players, they're usually good players for their second and third team.
Yeah.
Because whoever drafts them, you don't really have an opportunity to retain them. And you think they're going to be a good player, but by the time they're ready, it's usually for the second or third team, because it's hard to develop guys.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, you're putting them on a progressive train, right? When you bring them, when they go to that league, and to repeat what you said, because I was going to say, but you jumped on the point yourself. But I was going to say, a great coach told me once that that players develop at a different rate. So if you put them there, the development continues, as opposed to sitting down at the television on the couch and watching lacrosse instead of being able to participate. You regress, you don't progress, right? That's the issue, and that's why I think the AL is very important. It offers the progression that players need to get better, the opportunity to play.
Yeah, it's invaluable for our league. It's a great partner, and I hope it just grows and gets more embedded.
Sounds like it is growing. I think there's an interesting development there, it seems, every season.
Yeah, and they've got the Western Division now too, which is good. So they got the West Coast players with the opportunities as well. So yeah, it is. Yeah, and I think they want to try and do something with the U.S. players as well, and possibly have a little bit of a swing south of the border. So all that's valuable. It's good. And it's good for lacrosse in general. Keeps more guys in, and it keeps more guys developing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've had that conversation on this show with people involved directly to that point.
With the ALL people?
Yeah. I've had Paul on. I've also had all the guys from the West on. And we've had the roundtable before they introduced it with the Buckins and everybody else. And so it's been terrific to listen to the thinking behind it all and everything else. I've been doing media for them for the last couple of years too. So to get in, it's been great to watch it grow. And it's only going to keep growing from there. Yeah. Plus you have the coaching and the NLL coaches that are in there to help too, right?
Yeah, and I was part of their grassroots stuff. I remember when Paul started it. It was, it was a great idea, and he's done a great job of growing it and getting it off the ground.
Absolutely. Now we go into New England, and this is a little bit of a different thing because they had to kind of retrofit the arena to match the space that you had. So you almost had a home field advantage because you guys were used to a smaller field. And you'd have guys coming in on a Sunday afternoon to play. And, it worked out fairly well. You had a pretty good team out in New England. In fact, I think in the COVID-shortened season, you guys really should have won that thing.
Well, it's funny because I had taken over the 2015, 2016 season. I was hired after their first year in New England. And I said to Rich Lisk at the time, who was the general manager, I said, we probably need a 5-year plan. We need a 5-year developmental model to get to where we want to get to. And that was the COVID year. And we were 8-3, and we had beaten, the next 3 teams, the 2, 3, and 4 team, fairly handily. So we were certainly one of the favorites that year. And then COVID shut us down. And then, we've since then lost through free agency and different things, a lot of the core of that team. So we're sort of on that restructuring path again.
I think you're in pretty good shape, actually. I know it was a rough year this year, but we bring back the players that were injured, Charlie Kitchen, Travis Longboat, McCardle, Nardella. Plus you have a first round, first pick overall because of your finish.
Mhm.
I think with a base with Marshall Palace, Leo Sturris, Hannah Thompson, so on and so forth, that you really, and Doug Jamieson you just re-signed, I really think you have a good core. And I think anybody who takes you guys lightly is going to be in for a rude awakening. I remember the Rochester game where you and I talked, and wow, when everybody is clicking, that is a high octane team that works well together on top of everything.
Yeah, and we've got all the 3 first rounders from last year that went back to school to, add into the guys that we had lost for the year this year. So yeah, we'll be 7 to 8 players improved without making any moves. So we're going to have a different lineup configuration, and I think when you talk about the first overall pick we've got this year, we're going to be in a good position to build a pretty strong foundation and be one of those teams for the next 2 to 5 years that should be in the fight and should be in the mix.
Now, how is it received in Albany? You've been there for the year now. Is it growing? The fan base?
It is. It's growing in terms of media exposure and recognition in the market. I think as Frank mentioned, we need to win. We need to have some success to get more people into the stands. So we've got the people that love the game right now. We've got the people that enjoy the product. We've got the people that have been there and go, wow, this is a great value. Mm-hmm. Now we've got to win and get the other people go, oh, it's an interesting team. So I think to get over that hump and really start to grow it in market, we've got to now start. Obviously this year was tough for a lot of reasons.
Sure.
But we do have to start having some sustained success over a couple of years to get a better foothold in the market.
We only have a minute or so left. I really want to take the time to thank you for taking your time with us and talking all about your career and appreciate everything that you're doing for the game and with the Albany team.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys. Anytime. I enjoyed it.
Well, it's always our pleasure to have great people like you that make this game as great as it is. And I hope other people get a chance to pick up a stick as well. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. No, it was great, guys. I love talking lacrosse.
Okay, for Gary Groob and Glenn Clark, coach and GM of the Albany Firewolves, thanks for watching. We hope that you enjoyed the program. If you want to see more shows like this, you can watch them on the Spanglish World and also on Spanglish World Radio Network for this show and other shows you can really enjoy. You can check us out also on the Frank Stanisci, Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube channel. Now, keep in mind, when you watch Spanish World, you need to watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please exercise your ability to be a lacrosse player. You'll enjoy it.